Hello bookworms! Today I'm here with my February wrap-up. I actually ended up reading a whole lot of books in February, a lot more than I thought that I was going to read. So I am going to first tell you that I have a different background now because I am in a new apartment and I finally have space with my bookshelves, but these are not the final product. This is just what I had thrown on there for now, minus my Harry Potter shelves. Those are pretty set, but not sure if that's going to be like the definite placement of it, so it's a process. We'll get there. But anyway, I'm going to get right into what I've been reading because I have a lot to talk about. The first book that I ended up reading in February, which I said that I was going to read in my February TBR, is Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevers. I am obsessed with this book. Like, I loved it so much. It takes place in Brittany in 1485, which is like a completely different time period and setting that I have ever read a book about. So just from that aspect alone, it was like fascinating to just see like this whole political thing that was going on, and the plot was just like really amazing. I really love the main character. She is a total badass. She ends up becoming an assassin for death, and she joins this convent of nuns who are also assassins, and it was just like so cool to see her journey and to learn about all the different kinds of poisons. It seriously was one of like, it's, oh my god, I just love it. Like, I can't even put into words how much I love it, and I cannot wait to read the second one because everyone in this book is amazing. The side characters are amazing. The main characters are amazing. And I know that the second book follows two of the side characters, and they're two of the side characters that I like really loved. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one. I definitely want to get to it in March. The next book that I picked up is Firsts by Lori Elizabeth Flynn. Matches my shirt. This book was really interesting and really difficult for me to rate. It actually took me like a few days to decide upon a rating for it because the thing is, it follows this girl named Mercedes who had a very bad first time, and she starts this like service where she helps all of the guys at her high school who are virgins that have girlfriends because she wants them to be able to give their girlfriends the first time that she herself never had. So she thinks that she's doing this great thing, but she's sleeping with all of these guys who have girlfriends. So it's a bad thing. It's definitely interesting to read from the point of view of the other woman, but Mercedes was like this really smart, really intelligent girl, and I didn't buy that she felt like she was helping people with what she was doing. Like, she just seemed like, if she was so smart in all of these senses, why is she so unintelligent in this one sense? Then also on top of that, like, I found it really weird that Mercedes hated English but loved math because she does not like gray area at all, and yet her whole life there is kind of gray area. And she has this best friend who's like super religious. Mercedes goes to church group with her every week and stuff, and she has no idea what her best friend is doing. And obviously there's a lot of fallout that happens. The fallout did seem believable, but there were aspects of it that I felt like were missing. And I wrote a full review of it on my blog, as long as a ton of these other books, and I'll leave links to all of those down below. I tend to review books every single month, like full reviews, and they're always on my blog, and I always forget to say it in the YouTube videos, but they're there. So if you want to hear more thoughts about that, you can visit that blog post because I put a lot of like thought into sorting out my feelings for this one. It was really hard. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars because while I didn't love it, I also found myself interested, and I was reading it. Like, I read it very quickly and I was interested in the story. I liked Mercedes as a main character. I just didn't like what she was doing, and it was really like tough for me morally to rate this book. The next book that I read this month will have an image put right there, and that is Into the Dim by Janet B. Taylor. I read an arc of this from NetGalley, and this was actually my least favorite book that I read of the month. I can't remember if I gave it a 2-star rating or a 3-star rating, but I just really didn't like it. It follows a young girl who thinks that her mother dies, and then she goes to Scotland and visits her family and finds out that she comes from a long line of time travelers, and she has to go back into the past to try to save her mother from this other time traveling family who has kidnapped her. And there's a lot that happens, but it felt very forced to me. I didn't find it to be very believable, which probably sounds funny because it's a story about time travel, but I think time travel can be done very believably. It felt like all of the explanations for everything in this were kind of pandering to people who would know who certain famous scientists are. I don't know, like if I didn't feel like I had to finish this book, I would have DNF'd it because I really was not enjoying it, but I wanted to just finish it so I could review it and articulate why I didn't like it. And I wrote a full review for this book as well, but not one of my favorites. Glad I didn't pre-order it. Definitely don't want a finished copy. Moving on. The next book that I read is Boomerang by Noelle August. This is the first book in the Boomerang series, and this is really like my first kind of foray into new adults, besides A Court of Thorns and Roses, but that I guess feels more YA to me. I don't know. So this book follows these two young people who have a one-night stand and then find out the next day that they're actually both starting an internship at the same company, and they're competing for one job at the end of it. And there's a no strings attached policy at their job. So things are incredibly complicated, and there is so much tension going on between them, and their relationship is really cute. There's a bunch of miscommunication, and the characters both really want this job, but they also really want each other, so there's just a whole lot of conflict going on there, and I thought it was really cute, really well done, and I think that I will be continuing on with the series. And I gave Boomerang 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is The Story Spinner by Becky Wallace. I wanted to read this one like as soon as I could because it's a duology and the second book is coming out in March. So I'm going to read the second book in March when this is still fresh in my mind, which I now know was a really good choice because a lot of reviews, like early reviews that I read for the second book, said that they couldn't totally remember everything that happened in the first book. So I will remember, and I will hopefully enjoy the second one more as a result of that. But there is a lot going on in this book, but it's really, really well done, really well written. The characters are awesome. It takes a little bit to get used to because it jumps between, I want to say it's like 5 different narratives throughout the story. So there are 2 main like plot points that you're following, and they do end up like converging at some point, and it's just done like amazing. But the storyline that I cared most about was Johanna and Rafi. Johanna comes from a troupe of like performers, but unfortunately her father died during a performance, which performers see as bad luck. So the rest of her family was expelled from that troupe, and now she is kind of on her own, and she's dealing with this alcoholic mother and trying to take care of her little brothers. And I just like really loved her storyline. And then there's this whole thing going on with Rafi and his brother. Rafi's father died when he was younger, or not like too much younger, but his father died, and now he's the one that's expected to be the Duke, but he's still a young person. He's not really comfortable in that role yet, so he's trying to learn. Really loved his mother. His mother is really strong and really politically minded and very intelligent, so she was a pleasure to read from. But I like don't want to spoil anything, so I can't really tell you any more about it, but oh my gosh, it was just really, really good and really different. Definitely different than any fantasy that I've ever really read. I ended up giving The Story Spinner 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. I just adored this book. I felt like in the beginning I was being a little bit unfair toward it because I have already read the Throne of Glass series, and it's really hard not to draw a lot of comparison between the two, but this was published something like 12 years before Throne of Glass was, so I had to tell myself, like, you have to get over that because this existed first, so it's not fair to, like, judge this one on that. So I ended up really loving Poison Study. There are a bunch of things that are different, so it's not like if you read Throne of Glass, you won't like this, but it follows a young girl who has a choice of either being killed or becoming a poison taster for a food taster for the commander so that she can detect poisons and they can make sure that he's not gonna die and stuff. And it was really, really interesting. I thought the main character was like the perfect example of how you can really show that someone is a badass instead of being told that they are. Her actions were just like unbelievable. Like the way that she would react in certain situations, she just was like really, really on point with everything. And I really liked her character. I really liked the love thing going on. I just really loved everything about this book, and I love that there was also a little bit of magic in it. The second book's called Magic Study, so I know that one's going to involve more magic, but I ended up just loving Poison Study, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas because I was told that I should read this before I read Queen of Shadows, which I swear I'm going to get to soon. I just wanted to like make sure that I have all of the information about Throne of Glass that exists in my brain before I go into that one. And I wanted to be able to understand more of like the past things that they reference more. So I really did enjoy this. I liked seeing a lot of Selena's background and getting to know like why she is the way she is and see kind of the progression of her character. It's hard to imagine, but she was a lot more full of herself in these books before that one major thing happens in the last novella. There were some novellas in here that I liked more than others. I think the lowest rating that I gave one was a 3 out of 5 stars. I really, really loved the last story, even though it broke my heart. And I also really loved the first story with the pirate lord because I love pirates. So this was really good. I'm really glad that I got to read this, and I'm really looking forward to getting to Queen of Shadows now. The next book that I read is Reign of Shadows by Sophie Jordan. This book I completely fell in love with. I cannot wait for the second book. I cannot believe how the first book ended. I need more of this, like, immediately. It's heavily inspired by Rapunzel, who just so happens to be, like, one of my favorite fairy tale stories ever. So, first of all, that, like, drew me in immediately. But the world building in this was just incredible. Like, Sophie Jordan created this place where there was an eclipse, and there's just been darkness there for 17 years now, and there are these like monster things called dwellers that attack people, and they come out at a certain time of day. So like it's not safe for humans to really just roam the earth. They're constantly running from these things, and it's gotten to the point where there are like bats that are 4 feet long. Like I can't even imagine that. That sounds so scary to me. The main character, Luna, she is actually the like rightful heir to the throne, but her parents were killed by the person who is currently in power, and she's been hidden away in a tower, much like Rapunzel, with these 2 people who witnessed the entire thing happen, who used to work at the palace, and they've been protecting her. But Luna is not your average heroine. She is like so much more, and she's not like the super gorgeous girl. She's a very average looking girl. And there's another thing about her that is very different, but I don't want to spoil it because it's kind of exciting when you find out. But throughout the whole thing, like, I just loved it. I loved Fowler, who is the male protagonist in this. The story actually flip-flops between Luna's perspective and Fowler's perspective. Fowler takes on, he like vows to protect Luna when they have to leave the tower at one point, and I love learning his backstory, and he is so guarded because they just live in this hopeless world, and he doesn't want to like get hurt, so he has all of these walls built up around him, and just watching like the progression of their relationship while they're traveling together and everything was just like so sweet. And like I said, I'm just in love with this book. I'm so happy that I read it right away. But again, like it ends on a huge cliffhanger, so I need the second one. I obviously gave Reign of Shadows 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Stars Above by Marissa Meyer, which is the short story bind up of all of the little novellas from the Lunar Chronicle series. I actually hadn't ever read any of the novellas before, so everything in here was brand new to me. There were some stories that I really loved, particularly Thorn's story, and I also really loved the one that is based on The Little Mermaid. I believe it's called The Little Android. And then of course, the epilogue and the wedding, and it was so good, and I'm not even gonna tell you who it is, but it was just done so well. Like, I loved it. I was like going like this at the end of it and being like, oh, it was so good. So I ended up giving Stars Above 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the first book in the Grisha trilogy, because people keep flip-flopping between saying that you don't need to read this to read Six of Crows, and then other people are like, well, I would at least read the first one before you read Six of Crows. So I was like, I'm just not taking any chances. I'm gonna read this one, find out what it's all about, and then I will read Six of Crows. Although now I do feel like I want to read the other two before I read Six of Crows, so that happened. But it follows a girl who is a Grisha, and she has all of this power, and there's this guy named the Darkling, and he's also really powerful, and stuff happens. It's really, really good. I did not love it as much as other people seem to love it, and I don't know if it's because there's so much hype surrounding it, but I did really love the world building, and I did really like Alina's journey throughout it, so I'm really interested in reading the rest of it and seeing like what the rest of it's going to be like. I ended up giving Shadow and Bone 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I reread a comic that I've already read in the past, and it's Superboy Smallville Attacks by Jeff Lemire. I really enjoyed this run. I just decided that I kind of wanted to reread some of my old graphic novels, because as I was packing, I was like, oh my gosh, I have all of these graphic novels that I have loved that I haven't read in years, and I should read it again and like remember why I loved it. So I did that, and I really like this one. It follows Connor Kent when he's living in Smallville with Clark's mom, and there is something happening in Smallville, obviously, because he's a superhero and he has to get into things with some villain. But my favorite issue in this one is there's one where Superboy and Kid Flash have a race against each other, and they go like around the entire world to try to see who could win, and I just was laughing so much at who the winner was because I completely forgot, and I like that like the rest of the Teen Titans show up to support them, and it's just really cute. Like, there are so many cameos in this book. Poison Ivy shows up at one point, the Atom shows up at one point. There's just like, it's just so enjoyable. I just really, really loved this one, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I cannot find the book because it's somewhere in one of these boxes, but I read I think it was the 3rd volume of Ranma 1/2, and that is a martial arts romance. I don't want to say really what happened in that book because it's the 3rd one in the series, so I don't want to spoil anything, but it follows a young girl who is engaged to this guy who fell in this like cursed spring in Japan, and now anytime that he falls into like hot water, he turns into a girl, and then when he is in cold water, he turns back into a boy, or vice versa. I can't remember which way's hot, which way's cold, but that happens, and they're just constantly like, he's constantly getting into battles with people because people fall in love with the girl, and like he's trying to, you know, get them to not, or he's trying to like prevent them from talking to her, but then also there are people that fall in love with the girl version of him, and then people that fall in love with the boy version of him, and it's like, it's very Japan and it's really good and I enjoy it. So I ended up giving this volume 3 out of 5 stars. And then finally, I read The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry, which was the Spines with Wine's book club of the month. You may have noticed that we did not have the live show on the date that we said that we were going to, and it's because that was moving weekend for me, so we pushed it back. I really, really enjoyed this book. I'll leave a link to the live show down below. This follows a girl who has hypnopompic visions from somebody named Grandmother, and Grandmother warns her and says, you have 3 months to save him, but Natalie has no idea who this him is, and she has to figure it out and has to try to save him before anything happens. And then she meets this guy, Bo, and they fall in love, and it's really cute. I really like Natalie's main character. She is really, really witty. I love the relationship between her and her best friend Megan. I think that they are so perfect for each other. Like, the comebacks between them is just so enjoyable to read. Like, I really, really love that. And I liked Natalie's relationship with her adoptive parents, and I like that Natalie is of Native American descent because it was interesting to read from that perspective. And also a lot of the stories that Grandmother has told her are from like are from Native American culture. So that was really interesting, and the whole thing was just really good, and I really liked it. So I gave The Love That Split the World 4 out of 5 stars. So as you can see, I read like 1 million books this month, and I'm really ahead on all of my reading challenges and my Goodreads goal, which is so awesome because I felt that I was going to fall behind this month. I really hope that I have another great reading month in March, so we'll see. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book that you read in February was, and anything that you are planning to read in March, or anything that you think that I should read in March. And I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!